Organizational Inclusiveness. I would like to take you through the school bench to the corporate desk in this example. You must be remembering those days when you were first made to sit next to a student of opposite gender. For some, it might be in the co-education classroom, and for some, it might have been a higher class. But the day you were put next to a student of opposite gender, you must have sensed a bit of a discomfort. And then the next instance will be something like your play group from your own community or a nukkad, where a family joined that local society of yours, and then the child from a different religion was brought to your play team, by one of the friends, and you must have again felt some discomfort in getting along with this person from a different religion. Uh, Further to that, when you move to your college, you might have been put on a lab desk with someone from a different community or a state, or say a different country altogether. Each of these times, you must have sensed some kind of a discomfort. This is basically because we all always look for a comfort zone, and we have certain preoccupations, we have certain reservations, we have certain notions about things and what would be my next moments or times or days like, right? And in this, anything strange comes in, we are immediately shaken because we do not know how to get along. But current days are such, you will be confronting a person from a different community or a state or a nation or a religion, a different gender, as a team, as a group, as a pair in your work area. And this is quite common. So what should we do? Should we adapt to such things, adjust to such things, or accommodate to such things, or confront those things, those changes? Will you fight for a better comfort zone? There were times when you were supported because there were larger communities and minor communities. So the minorities had a different approach to life, or they had their own rituals, practices, culture, norm. So we are all different. We have read about the differences of individuals several times through this program, and we need to be prepared for the tomorrow, wherever we join or wherever we are working. These days, organizations are talking about inclusiveness. That is, the people you are working with or you would work with will be from a diverse background. And then what is diversity? Diversity is the practice or quality of including people from different backgrounds, religion, socio-economic background, social and ethnical different ethnic backgrounds. It may be like different genders. The genders these days is not limited to male, female alone, but then we talk about bisexual and transgenders as well, besides homosexuals, and also like people may come from different demographic status, right? So what then is diversity? So it is the practice or quality of including people from different backgrounds in our work areas or in our projects or in our teams, wherein the people from different with different ideas and ideologies have to work together. Very soon you will understand that it is very contributing, it is very progressive, it is worthwhile to work with people from different backgrounds, because we get to understand uh, everybody comes from different perspectives, and these perspectives even widen our own knowledge and experience. So, a successful organization draws its strength from the differences of potential talent, experience, ideas, and opinions for a supportable decision to fulfill the company's goals, wherein people come from different backgrounds. So, diversity can be of three types: the workforce diversity, which includes the similarities and differences of people in terms of different culture, different ethnicity, different gender, race, um, religion, physical abilities and disabilities. It can be like the sexual orientation of each individual is different, so they would be having different perspectives, and you know not how those perspectives can help in your work area, in your projects, in your in achieving your goals. People may come from different family status as well, which is again a workforce diversity. The second is the behavioral diversity, wherein we see differences of people in the work styles, the work behavior, the thinking styles, the learning styles, the communication styles. It can be like the differences in their beliefs, values, their attitude, and even their expectation from the employees and the employers, right? And the third one is called the cognitive diversity. A family with I mean, more than two siblings also understands that each of the child is different. And we get to know that we are all different. Lucky are those people who get to live with different personalities. You get a very early exposure to adjusting with people, right? And in this cognitive diversity, we come across uh, people's focus on diversity based on the cognitive abilities of people. That is, perspectives vary, or the interpretations or heuristics, or say the predictive models of people. Everybody have their own way of processing information and coming to conclusion, or the way they take decisions differs from person to person, right? So which results in a very high performance while dealing with complex tasks. So diversity, we can understand from this that it will be contributing, it will be benefiting the organization and the individuals working together. Uh, Diversity is to be accepted. And how do we accept this? This is through the process called inclusion. So, inclusion is an integral element of diversity. uh, we need to create, promote, encourage organizations to include people from different diversities. So, creating an inclusive organization requires broadening the mindset of people, the perspective and viewpoints of people or the work staff who come from diverse backgrounds, and bring with them large range of skills and perspectives, and that encourages the environment of innovation and creativity. They come up with different ideas, ideologies, and then the uh, employee stability also helps in increased productivity, right? Uh, and the employees need to support the idea of working together and benefiting from each other. So Working in an organization that promotes inclusiveness is in turn can be considered as a blessing in disguise and not a challenge. Okay. So, what are the characteristics of an inclusive organization? How should this organization be? You cannot run away from inclusion. So organizations have to include people of different diverse backgrounds in order to tap the talent pool to the maximum extent. So how should this organization be, and what should be the approach of this organization? An inclusive organization accepts diversity and implements the inclusion strategy, first of all. That means they must be prepared to take the step of accepting the diversity. Uh, and they must be following a measurable behavior and competencies of these people, which shouldn't be affecting the individual's personal bias and opinions. They need to check like how much of gender diversity, uh, or say like the LGBT diversity is being acceptable, and where it is not acceptable or where there is resistance, then the company need to bring up awareness programs, training programs in order to change the mindset of people, and expose them to the possibilities, feasibility of tapping that resource to the best possible extent. There must be transparent policies. See, accepting someone is one part, is just the first step. But then the persons whom you are accepting, they need to feel comfortable as well. They need to feel safe and secure as well with the existing employees, right? So there must be transparent policies and procedures, and there mustn't be any hidden rules. There must be a lot of clarity in the policies regarding the people whom you are including, so that the behavior will be apparent, right? Um, and they would not stay unknown to things like, uh, let me give you an example for more clarity. If we are encouraging inclusion of disabled people, and here we are considering someone who is visually impaired, we have policies, but we need to have these policies accessible to this visually impaired employee, and they must know all the rules. So there must be transparency in the sense like they should know what are the rules. So you need to enable the person to learn these procedures and processes and strategies that you follow, uh, like the other non-challenged persons would learn about the organization, right? So you must make some instrumental abilities there, like maybe there's an interpreter, or maybe for this visually impaired person, you need to give these policies in brailled, brailled way of information presentation. So, and there must be consistency in the practice of interactions with everyone. That means there must not be any contradictions in behavior, or the rules must be fair, and there shouldn't be any kind of a favoritism, or there shouldn't be any kind of a resistance, or say preferences over the disabled. I mean, avoidance of the disabled and preference of the non-challenged. There must be a learning culture. The career development programs, the career development paths should be equally provided to those who are including, and there must be a facility of coaching and mentoring these people, like it would happen to any of the normal employees. There should also be certain conflict resolution systems, these systems should be available and accessible at all levels. It is not only at the lower level but also higher levels. Um, we will discuss about this a little later when we come across the career development path of these diverse employees, for whom the career may have certain blocks because of their setbacks. Okay. The other characteristics of the inclusive organization will be like they must be active participants in the community activities. They must include everybody. The vision, mission, and core values of the organization have to be uh, briefed to them in the way they can be communicated, and the values of earned privileges should be available to all. And also any kind of a change management has to be implemented, keeping in mind these diverse individuals. I mean, people who, particularly those who are with a disability, right? So whenever there is a change, it shouldn't be something like, since this involves a high cost, it can be managed or avoided or adjusted. No. Uh, in one of my visits to US, we were walking down a street, and we noticed a small board there saying, blind people in the area drive carefully. So we thought that that area has got some blind people. And as we walked further from lane to lane, and from area to area, even later when we were driving through the localities, we found some similar boards everywhere. One of us asked, like, is this a place where there are quite a number of or significant number of blind people? To our utter shock, this particular place had a population of around 35,000 or 40,000. That's all. It's a small place. Uh, then these boards, are the numbers of blind big enough? Then they said we have 4 blind people in this small town of ours, and for people who come from other cities and towns, to make them aware of our 4 blind citizens, we have these boards displayed in all corners of the entire town. So that is the approach, that is the respect given to people. This is a larger place, but when it comes to a smaller organization, does this organization take it this seriously about the diverse individuals who are otherwise a minority? Do we really take care of them with that spirit and eye? So, what are the benefits of inclusion? Uh, when we include people from different, diverse backgrounds, every individual, regardless of having a setback or having a challenge or not, will be open to everyone else. That means we will be more flexible. If flexible is not the right word, I would like to use adaptable. So when we have people from diverse background, every individual employee will become more accommodative and more adaptable. So when we have diversity as an inclusion in our organization, we would have an increased organizational flexibility. This brings us a level of openness to each other, thereby having a larger talent pool. And when the ideas are floated from each corner from different perspective, we tend to become more creative, working on our ideas in sync with the other ideas or converging with each other's ideas. We may get and become more creative. We may come up with more innovative solutions. So diversity brings in creativity and innovation. When we are having a resource of such creative team, no wonder the productivity of this group and team or organization multiplies. When productivity increases, it brings job satisfaction. Job satisfaction brings happiness, and happiness enhances morale of the employees. With a better morale and fellow feeling, good interpersonal relations develop, and the bonding brought by this good interpersonal relations improves the communication further, and we will have uh, a group of better employees. When an organization has such better employees, certainly it will be passing a word across that this is an organization where people enjoy their association with such an organization. The results will be visible in their acts and their activities and their outcomes. So more and more people would like to join this organization, and when more and more people come, and obviously every organization will try to recruit the best, so this will attract even better, personnel, right? And when we have such a satisfied organization with each individual employee having job satisfaction, a very high morale, who would quit the organization? Who would remain absent, right? Unless otherwise there is, an inevitable situation, people wouldn't prefer to be absent from workplace, right? So inclusion, regardless of the diversity as such, will create I mean even if inclusion is not an opportunity that an organization got, and the organization has people from same community, there will be one level of morale. But when you have inclusion of the diverse people, each individual realizes that their own potential to accommodate, interact, communicate, build relations has expanded, and they will have a level of self-satisfaction as well. Now, this will encourage people to contribute more, right? And they also will have a wider platform to receive recognitions from. Uh, when we are in a community or a club, and when we are encouraged by one cliché group, we certainly feel uncomfortable with the other groups. And when we have every group in that organization approaching us to appreciate our endeavors, don't we feel good? This is exactly how it feels when we are working with a very diverse organization. So, organizations encourage and practice inclusion. Okay. Let us now see like what is disability inclusion or inclusion of people with disabilities. What is disability? Disability can again be of three types. One is impairments, and then we have activity limitations, and then we have participation restrictions. What is impairments? It's a problem in the body function or say structure. Someone not having a limb someone not having, I mean, someone having only one working eye. So this can be, these are those impairments. So the body structure isn't normal, or there is some kind of an abnormalcy which reduces the limitation of an individual for one aspect. That is, like if someone cannot, I mean, someone uh, has lost a leg, it is only the that part of the body which is affected. The rest of the body must be working. And we also know certain basic facts, like those who are blind have got other senses working to the peak. So we shouldn't undermine any individual with a physical impairment. They would, they will be having rest of the organs working pretty fine, or maybe much better than the rest of us. So disabilities of impairment shouldn't be looked down upon. I mean, because of the disability, the individual shouldn't be looked down upon. Activity limitations. It's a difficulty in executing a task or action. Someone not being able to do a certain task as adept as the normal individual. And when it comes to that, I would say even normal individuals, if we compare their abilities and competences, each one will differ in their potential, in their health, in their, I mean, in their, what do you say, like in their uh, droidness, we say, like where, or say like how they work. Say two people, very normal people, when they're walking, going for a morning walk, they wouldn't be walking at the same pace for the same length of time, right? We all differ. Now, when it comes to disability, it is something like that. So we need to accept this activity limitation also, considering that this person may not be able to do complete the task as quickly as a normal individual, but then they can certainly complete. So this openness should be coming to us when we interact with a person with a disability of activity limitation. And the third is the participation restriction, a problem experienced by an individual in involvement of life situation, right? So these three disabilities may restrict an individual to be included in the organization. Like the person with such disability may not have, I mean, may not be selected, recruited by an organization. That's the very normal, I mean, common difficulty that they come across. But now we are talking about how should organizations include such people with disabilities, still tap the tap the potential of these people and give them an opportunity to develop themselves to for some, in some cases it might be even survival. So giving them opportunity. So inclusion in the work force, what are the issues and challenges? Now, why is this a topic to be discussed? Because we need to understand what's the difficulty in with these organizations to include people with difficulties. So, first of all, it is the inadequate access to education and training. People with disability may not get a complete level of education or training because of certain impairments. So this shouldn't stop the organizations from giving these people an opportunity to join the workforce. Okay. Social and psychological barriers, um, like considering uh, such people with disabilities may impact on others, or some kind of a psychological bias, like why should we include them? So these kinds of thinking also holds us from giving them an opportunity. discrimination in hiring and promotion by employers. Even if an organization has an intention to include such disabled or challenged people, the recruiter may be biased. And the recruiter may not be open to the thought of including these challenged individuals. So, this itself can be a hindrance in inclusion. Then inadequate accessibility to workplace. The disabled may not know about the available opportunities with the organization or with other organizations wherein there is a chance that they would get a job, but because of their impairment they are unable to know about this opening or opportunity. The other barriers faced by disabled job seekers, like there are several other disabilities. It may be like the physical and communication barriers. Like uh, an organization may not have the proper transport facility. Say, suppose a visually impaired person is very brilliant and has a very sharp thinking ability, perceiving ability, and also is very good at decision making. But this individual has a limitation because they cannot reach the workplace. So transportation will be. So in such cases, the organization should perceive this, and when they come across a person with such potential but an impairment, they must consider recruiting these people and arrange transport for them. Then access to building and other field. Now, even if the individual who is challenged is confident about working, the workplace may not be having proper facilities to or infrastructure to accommodate these individuals. Um, this is another thing which we notice, like I happened to visit a school um, which had ramps everywhere, and this was way back in the 2003 when I visited in US. I found in many schools and colleges, every place they had these ramps. They had separate facilities like railings and all everywhere, and um, the stairways were widened, and one part was a ramp. And we asked again, like, why all this is done. They said we have one physically challenged student who commutes with a wheelchair. One student among 700 students in that institute, and for that one student, this institute has arranged this. That should be the approach in the workplace. So accessibility to of information. Say they must be having interpreters, or they must be having voiceover facilities, like, or say braille indications and instructions for impaired people. So lack of awareness of job vacancy itself is a hindrance. So this is a challenge by itself. Or inaccessible online job boards to the challenged people, challenged individuals. Inaccessible application process. They may not know how to go about with the application for the recruitment. Inaccessible interview venue as well. So these are certain hindrances or setbacks or barriers because of which um, it is difficult to bring the physically challenged or the, mentally challenged individual to a potential recruiter. Okay. There are certain historical barriers as well, like the challenged individual hasn't got sufficient education. The person may be a postgraduate, but then the person hasn't got any exposure to computer knowledge. So, such kind of barriers may also cause an individual to not tap the opportunity to seek a job. Okay. Prejudice by employers themselves resulting in non-remunerative tasks or improper designations. Some employers may take advantage of this. They would say like, we can give you an engagement, but we cannot pay. That itself is a discrimination, right? And this individual, when they learn the work, gradually they must be contributing in a significant way. But then the employer might have been taking advantage of this situation. There can be certain attitudinal barriers as well, like the interviewer's focus for impairment rather than the skill of the individual. While conducting the interview, the interviewer is so very biased and carried away by the impairment, he couldn't or she couldn't focus on the prospects' brilliance or the prospects' talent, and that might disrupt the interview process and not expose that the skill competence of the challenged person. So this itself is an attitudinal barrier. Colleagues' lack of understanding and flexibility, the public's lack of understanding of, the challenges these people face, or sometimes it may be a low self-esteem of the challenged individual about being able to move ahead in life and uh, take a job. Okay. It might so happen that a well-off family with a uh, challenged ward may themselves be overprotective, possessive, and they may not allow this person to go and work, right? So limiting the possibility of this individual to help themselves uh, explore, uh, work, and earn a living, and also self-esteem, right? So these are attitudinal barriers, and there can be stereotypes which may stereotypical thinking of people, which may itself be a barrier in providing these people, people with diversity, particular disability, diversity, um, in including into an organization. A perception of being prone to accident. People may think, the recruiter may think that if I engage this individual, there are chances of meeting with an accident, and then we will be legally bound to take care of these people. And this thought itself is limited, right? Such limitations should be overcome by recruiters and organizations, and come forward to give these challenged individuals an opportunity in order to gain and earn some self-respect by making them acquire a job and work and earn their living and respect. Um, there may also be certain stereotypical thinking by the recruiter, like this person may not work for a long period, this person may not work continuously, and the person may take too many sick leaves, right? So this kind of stereotypical thinking uh, limits an individual from offering opportunities to the disabled individuals. There can be some workplace policies and procedures which themselves are a limitation in an organization, like the recruitment process itself, the accessibility of resources to the challenged individual, or maybe there is limited training, or maybe there isn't a flexibility in work hours, or say flexible time, or say workplace, like these days we talk about work from home. So similar such changes can be brought in an organization to accommodate these people and include them in the organization. So how do we create inclusion and accessible workplace? So what are the inclusion practices? There can be sign languages. Like I said, we saw those signals everywhere, like blind people around, drive carefully. So that kind of things need to be given. Instructions may be braille, or there may be like the voiceovers, like in in an escalator. I mean, sorry, in a elevator, we find those voices like the where the lift reaches, which floor, and so those kind of voice instructions can be enabled for people. Then there can be verbal explanations or visual material distributed for visually impaired people. The work environment should be conducive, like facilitating ramps and railings and all this. Like even the restrooms have to have certain, I mean, facilities for the challenged individuals, training the employees to deal with people with disabilities, also making them aware like what is the disability etiquette they have to maintain. The normal people need to maintain some disability etiquette with the disabled, how they deal with the people. Awareness programs and sensitivity training needs to be done, so that they create an environment in the organization, and the employees will accommodate and accept the disabled individuals. Uh, uh, Inclusive policies have to be created by the organizations, like formulation after a proper plan for reasonable accommodation as part of the overall budget to meet the changes, to meet the requirements needed for the disabled employees. So this must be done at the beginning itself. When you're planning your budget, you need to allot certain money for um, facilitating for these people. Uh, there must be proper formats of the communication material. Uh, the organizations should create an inclusive environment for these people, like access to job application, access to the work premises, or say conduct a meeting in accessible places. If there is one individual who has difficulty in reaching, so the meeting should be made more closer, more proximus to this individual, and the rest may move to that place. So then conduct employee engagement activities. Um, Employee engagement activities are usually done, but when you know we have certain disabled individuals, then we need to accommodate those activities in a manner that the others are also included, right? Seek expert advices to implement changes. You need to check with the physicians uh, who may guide the HR to facilitate these people, right? Um, so the disability diversity requires an effort by the HR and the organization to make certain adjustments to accommodate these people. The rest, next is gender diversity. Um, in the beginning, I started with the bench which you shared at your school with a person of opposite gender and your level of discomfort. Uh, we, the way we are brought up may impact our interactions in future in the workplace. Co-education schools are one attempt to give an exposure to the individual students how to understand each other's potential limitations, perspectives, so that we can work together. And when we grow up, we create an organization wherein both the genders can work properly. But this, uh, here we cannot say only two genders, but we need to also accommodate the bisexual, the transgenders. So this is where we come across the LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgenders, and not just the male female gender differences. Okay, so um, sometimes we realize that there are certain areas where when we are clueless how to go about with a certain task, and uh, the opposite gender may bring up a solution where we will feel so foolish. Hey, how did I not think about this? How could I miss this? So, we have certainly come across many such instances. And so, the an organization and the individuals have to accommodate people of different gender. Well, what are the inclusion barriers then? uh, we come across this glass ceiling. After a certain level, the women do not get enough opportunity to move ahead in the hierarchy, and they seem to have hit a invisible barrier. I mean, there's a barrier, but then that's not visible, right? So we call it a glass ceiling. Now, what is this? Because there is an opinion that this person may not be able to perform in that level, in that higher position. So that is a barrier, and this restricts an organization from permitting the women to take those higher positions. There may be gap in the salary or the remuneration. So there is a gender pay gap. In India, currently we have around um, uh, 27%, we can say, like gender gap. That is, for every 100 rupees paid to the male, for a similar work, the women are paid 73 rupees. Right? So the 27 rupees of gender pay gap is what we see in India even today. Um, Possibly the women, given the right opportunities, would be at par with the men. Why then do we have this gender pay gap? Okay, this one of the barriers. There may be a glass escalator, like a male may get the promotions at a particular pace, and the women may not get at the same pace. In many a situation, and we also see the men entering into areas where it is otherwise a women domain, like nursing is one such example, where we these days find more male nurses. And if they enter, then it would take away certain opportunities from the women. At the same time, like, it can be done, but at the same time, like, the pay must be justified. Okay. There is something called the sticky floors, where even if a promotion is given to the female counterpart, the salary is not at par, or the authority is not at par. So this kind of differences is what we find in the gender diversity. Now, what could be the possible reasons to have such barriers? One is prejudice. We have an opinion that the other gender cannot perform as good as the male gender, right? Then there is resistance to women leadership. Um, Successful women managers are more deceptive, or say tough or egoistic, and hard to take, is what is the opinion of the organization in many a place. And this acts as a resistance to promote the women to higher leadership positions. Um, the family demands also are one reason why. That means the women, after a certain level or after a certain period of work, the family may need them, and then this dual role may limit the women from working at the best of their abilities and time. And this is another reason why there is a barrier of not giving them equal opportunity. Uh, Pay is unequal. The higher levels of pay gap is also very, the higher we go, the pay gap is higher. That means when we see the women at higher positions, the men in similar positions get a much fatter salary, whereas the women are not given. So this is another reason why it acts as an obstacle. Then there is uh, the women may have this maternity leave and others, which interrupts their work experience, and this in turn causes them to not have an equal pay, right? And then uh, so sometimes it is also considered that they are better a part-time workforce, like um, they gain what do you say, the low hourly ratio. That means these breaks or these interruptions in their career um, will will make their superannuation, the accumulated superannuation will be lesser, right? So these are certain structural difficulties that women face, which act as a barrier to get this, I mean, to be considered as an equal to the male counterpart. The gender role orientation itself is a cause of the barrier, like um, the work organization facility approve and promote that promote the women. They accept them as a submissive individual, and they give them non-leadership roles, whereas men usually are for the leadership roles. So this perception itself is a barrier to the women. There is also gender stereotyping, like the women are better made for the domestic work, and they may not be um, as competent in the workplace. That gender stereotyping is again a barrier. And sexual harassment is another reason why uh, the women may not venture into um, the workplace. The harassment may range from taunts, comments, to even like physical transgression, right? There's another limitation, unfortunately, by the same gender, the female itself, like the queen bee syndrome. Um, the women in leadership positions may not want the other women to come up, um, and they restrict them to take over, right? Then the workplace incivility by people, it can be from the same gender or the other gender, like women occupy a subjugated position at the workplace, like they do at home. Like the men are the, I mean, the karta of the house, like the decision makers of the house. Without their knowledge, the women cannot take a step further. So this kind of subjugation may replicate in the workplace. So this is again, and finally the sticky floor effect. All these cause a barrier for the women to venture into the field. How do we overcome these barriers then? Professional networking. Women should enroll themselves in those I mean organizations where they can network and have connectivity, and wherein they get an exposure, they get a recommendation also for about their skills and competences, and I mean, make it to those positions and places. There aren't enough mentors in this, since we have been restricting the women to progress in their career. There's a possibility that the next generation doesn't get enough guidance how to make a career. Um, then self-promotion, women may not be as aggressive as men in self-promoting, and this is a limitation. So there must be more opportunities for women to self-promote. Then helping the dropout women by proper guidance. And then the best part would be women empowerment, um, where we give them opportunities to come forward, to exhibit their competence, and give them that kind of an opportunity to explore how best they can do it. And many women these days have successfully done this, proved themselves, and they are now role models for many other youngsters. The transgender or LGBT inclusion is our last part. Like um, LGBT employees compromise one of the largest but least studied minority groups in the workforce, and the workplace place inclusion or the creation of EAGs, um, that is the employee affinity groups, and the diversity initiatives for LGBT communities must be done in order to give them the right opportunity to exhibit their skill. Lack of such LGBT supportiveness reduces the size of the talent pool, and one needs to work on it. Such discrimination is not such discrimination is a curse to this the human race, I would say. Now, so this is again because they also have less role models and mentors who can help them guide and to make a better career. Sometimes there is also dual discrimination to these people, like they are neither accepted by the male nor the female. So uh, their own groups have such a discriminative approach to them. So wherein they lose their confidence and self-esteem, and they do not venture into the normal world, right? So uh, one needs to give them an opportunity for gender identity and gender expression. Gender identity is how the people refer to themselves to um, the being a male or a female is gender identity, and gender expression is how would they like to exhibit themselves by their attire, by their communication, by their um, actions and activities. So that is the expression. And so what should organizations do? uh, Organizations have to ease, um, again an acronym I would like to use here. If inclusive organization eased LGBT, then we have better workplaces. Eased stands for empathy, acceptance, then safety, um, equality, and dignity. First of all, the existing employees should have empathy towards the LGBT groups, LGBT minorities. And when we have empathy and understand from their perspective, possibly we start respecting them, we start valuing them, and we start accepting them. Accepting them is including them as one among us when it comes to the skill, competence, and abilities to render services towards the organizational goals. Um, Safety is what they needs to, they need to feel safe. So this third attempt by the organization and its individual has to be safety. That means no harassment, um, no ill treatment, no discrimination, no looking down upon. On the contrary, safety is also making LGBT minorities feel comfortable in the workplace. So, and also making them avail the facilities that are available to a normal individual. This is what an organization can do uh, by every individual employee to these minorities. And this is how we can establish equality in the organization. And thus, we can render them a dignity for individual existence and also contribute to the organization. Thank you.